Not every DC hero vanished because they were boring. Some disappeared simply because DC never gave them the chance they deserved. These heroes had incredible powers, emotional backstories, and fan-favorite potential. Yet one bad reboot, a cancelled series, or shifting editorial priorities pushed them into the shadows. They weren't failures. They were forgotten. From cosmic warriors who could challenge gods to street-level icons who once carried entire teams, DC left behind a surprising list of heroes who should have become legends. So which forgotten heroes truly deserve a comeback? Here are 10 forgotten DC heroes who deserve a comeback. At number 10 is Stalker. Stalker first appeared in Stalker issue 1 in 1975 as a young warrior desperate to escape the powerless life he was born into. He sought strength from the demon lord Dgurth and won immortality, but the victory shattered him. Dgurth tore out his soul, leaving him alive without the thing that made him human. From that moment, Stalker moved through the world like a man trapped inside his own body, unable to feel fear, joy, or love. His quest became a chase for the part of himself he could no longer touch. What made him stand out was how his curse shaped every step he took. An immortal warrior wandering battlefields, not to conquer them, but to reclaim his stolen humanity. Across 4 issues, his journey cut through monsters, kingdoms, and broken lands. Yet the real struggle was always inside him. Then the series ended, leaving his search unfinished. Stalker deserves a comeback because his story is the story of a hero trying to breathe again. At number 9 is Jack Knight. Jack Knight first appeared in 0 Hour, Crisis in Time, issue 1 in 1994. He was the son of the Golden Age Starman, a man who never wanted his father's cosmic staff and never planned to inherit a legacy. Jack spent his days running an antique shop until violence forced him into the role he had always avoided. Wearing a leather jacket and goggles instead of a costume, he became a reluctant starman shaped by duty rather than destiny. Fans embraced him immediately, drawn to his honesty, humor, and the grounded way he carried his family's name. As he defended Opal City, Jack uncovered the history tied to the Starman mantle and slowly grew into its most faithful protector. In 2001, he retired to raise his son, a rare, peaceful ending DC chose to honor. But reboots buried his era, leaving newer readers unaware of him. Jack deserves a comeback because his story didn't end. It simply went quiet. At number 8 is the Heckler. The Heckler first appeared in the Heckler issue 1 in 1992, starring Stuart Mosley, a man who fought Delta City's bizarre criminals with nothing but sharp humor and relentless energy. His world was chaotic, filled with villains who made no sense, and Stu answered every threat with a joke that landed harder than any punch. Fans connected to him because his comic was genuinely funny. Each issue delivered surreal gags, rapid-fire banter, and jokes that pushed DC's storytelling into a stranger, lighter direction. Readers enjoyed seeing a hero who survived not through strength, but through timing, wit, and pure refusal to take the city's madness seriously. Across 6 issues, he faced absurd enemies and treated every battle like a comedy act he refused to let the villains ruin. When DC shifted toward darker tones, his series ended and he faded into cult status. The Heckler deserves a comeback because his humor brought a spark no other DC hero carried, and that spark has been missing for years. At number 7 is Beowulf. Beowulf first appeared in Beowulf, Dragon Slayer issue 1 in 1975, introduced as DC's take on the famous hero who stood against monsters when others could not. The comic began close to the original myth, but quickly expanded into stranger territory, sending Beowulf into worlds filled with mutated creatures, ancient curses, and unexpected science fiction twists. Fans connected to him because the book mixed classic sword and shield action with unpredictable fantasy turns that made every issue feel bigger than the last. Readers didn't need long lore to follow him. The story was simple, direct, and driven by a hero who faced impossible threats with absolute certainty. What made Beowulf stand out was the range built into his world. The comic could shift from dragon hunts to cosmic battles without losing its identity, giving DC a fantasy lead who could move across genres. His run was short, and without a team or event tie-in, he faded from publication. Beowulf deserves a comeback because his story has room to grow, offering DC a fantasy title that can compete with modern epics. At number 6 is Claw the Unconquered. Claw first appeared in Claw the Unconquered issue 1 in 1975. Introduced as Vulcan of Pytharia, a warrior born with a claw-shaped deformity that set him apart from his own people. His world was pure pulp fantasy, sorcery, collapsing kingdoms, and battles where strength and will mattered more than destiny. Fans connected to Claw because the comic delivered straightforward adventure. He wasn't a superhero in armor. He was a marked outsider fighting through a realm that judged him before he lifted a blade. That mix of power and isolation gave the character a grounded emotional pull. Across 12 issues, Claw traveled through Pytharia facing sorcerers, monsters, and a fate he never asked for. His struggles always came back to the same idea, a man trying to rise above the mark he was born with. When DC moved focus toward superheroes, his series ended and he disappeared from the line. Claw deserves a comeback because his world and his conflict remain untouched territory with real potential. At number 5 is Rip Hunter. Rip Hunter first appeared in Showcase number 20 in 1959, introduced as the inventor of the time sphere and the leader of a small crew who followed him into history. His stories showed him stepping into eras where surviving a single hour took planning, courage, and instinct. Fans connected to Rip because the danger in his comics felt direct. He wasn't a superhero with powers. He was a man who walked into the past, knowing that one mistake could trap him there or erase the world he came from. That tension gave his adventures a constant emotional pull. Across his early issues, Rip faced dinosaurs, ancient armies, and future tyrants while trying to keep his team alive and protect the timeline they barely understood. Every mission carried the pressure of returning home with history intact. When DC shifted toward team events and superhero-driven stories, his title faded and his role was pushed aside. Rip Hunter deserves a comeback because, despite his TV fame, his solo comic adventures have been abandoned, leaving his best time travel stories untold. At number 4 is Arak, Son of Thunder. Arak first appeared in the Warlord issue 48 in 1981 before launching into his own series. His comic stood out because it mixed cultures and mythologies in a way no other DC title was doing at the time. Arak fought alongside Vikings, traveled through medieval Europe, battled creatures from Norse legends, Roman folklore, and faced sorcerers and monsters that changed from arc to arc. Fans enjoyed the book because every issue delivered a new environment, a new mythology, or a new threat. The series felt like an adventure map where anything could appear next. Arak himself had a unique advantage: Viking combat skills paired with spiritual knowledge from his early life, giving him a broader toolkit than most fantasy leads. With 50 issues to build its world, the series offered large battles, supernatural mysteries, and historical backdrops that made it easy for readers to stay invested. When DC shifted focus toward superheroes, the title ended. Arak deserves a comeback because his blend of history and myth still offers stories no other DC character covers. At number 3 is Lady Cop. Lady Cop first appeared in the first issue special issue 4 in 1975, introduced as Liza Warner, a woman who witnessed a murder and entered police training to identify the killer responsible. Her comic focused on procedure, street crime, and detective work. Readers followed her through academy lessons, neighborhood patrols, and investigations where the tension came from the details of the case rather than superhuman threats. Fans connected to the series because it played like a crime drama inside the DC universe. The book showed evidence gathering, witness interviews, beat cop routines, and the challenges of chasing suspects without any extraordinary abilities. The core plot of her debut issue centered on Liza tracking clues tied to the killer, a storyline that gave the comic a grounded mystery hook. Once her introductory story wrapped, DC shifted its focus towards superhero titles, and Lady Cop appeared only in scattered later references. She deserves a comeback because crime-driven stories still have space in DC, and her original issue showed a format that worked on its own terms. At number 2 is the Viking Prince. The Viking Prince first appeared in the Brave and the Bold issue 1 in 1955, introduced as John, a warrior whose stories blended Norse settings with classic adventure pacing. His early issues followed him across frozen seas, raider battles, cursed islands, and confrontations with warriors who tested his skill at every turn. Fans connected to the Viking Prince because the comic delivered straightforward action built around duels, quests, and challenges tied directly to the mythic tone of the era. Each story used practical stakes: rescuing prisoners, defeating rival clans, surviving shipwrecks, and built tension through the physical dangers he met. Many of his adventures involved curses that forced him into harsher fights, including a spell that made him unable to die unless struck by a weapon forged by love, giving his stories a recurring dramatic engine. When DC's focus moved toward costumed heroes, his historical adventures faded from the line. The Viking Prince deserves a comeback because his world still supports high-action stories that modern DC rarely explores. At number 1 is Ragman. Ragman first appeared in Ragman issue 1 in 1976, introduced as Rory Regan, a junk shop owner who gained the mystical suit of souls after a robbery killed his father and friends. His early stories followed him through the rundown streets of his neighborhood, where he fought criminals using the strength, skills, and instincts drawn from the souls stitched into his costume. Fans connected to Ragman because the comic blended street-level crime with supernatural action, giving each fight a mix of detective work, martial combat, and eerie magic from the suit itself. As his mythology expanded, Rory's heritage was clarified as Jewish, and the origin of his powers drew from the legend of the Golem of Prague. Ragman moved from fighting drug dealers and gangs to confronting demons and magical conspiracies in books like Shadow Pact. Despite several limited series and cameos, he never held a long-running title. Ragman deserves a comeback because his TV appearance proved he has fans, but his comic book world of urban grit and mystic folklore offers stories that TV couldn't touch. Thanks for watching the video. Comment down below your favorite part, and let us know also. Press the subscribe button and bell icon for regular updates.